Welcome everyone to MSP Projects Then, Now, and Next. We are graced with the presence of wonderful Dawn Sizer, one of my personal role models. She's the CEO of Third Element Consulting, and then Reagan Roney, full send Reagan, Chief Experience Officer of Solvera One. And I'm so happy you two are here. I love the Tech Degenerates. They're two founders of the Tech Degenerates community, if y'all don't already know that. And then, of course, we have Lewis. Everyone knows Lewis. He's our VP of Operations here at Moovila. And then there's me. I'm Colleen. I'm just gonna be the MC hanging out with y'all. Anyways, why don't we start with fun facts?
You want me to go first, warm it up?
Please, Liz.
Okay. So I learned mine this week actually at DattoCon, and some guy came by and he wanted some socks, and I was like, I'm not going to sell you, man. Like, if just give me a fun fact, and you can have all the socks you want. And his fact, the great
Oh,
one, was that Heinz ketchup bottles on the label on the front, there's a red outline like outside the clear substrate that you can't normally see, but it matches the color of their ketchup perfectly. So that if at restaurants, I know this is wild, at restaurants, if they're filling a different brand of ketchup in the bottle, then you can see the red line. And for you as a consumer, that's your indicator that, hey, this is not actually Heinz ketchup that is in the bottle.
I can't taste the difference.
I can't either. I didn't know people were that particular about their ketchup, but I thought that that was pretty smart. Oh, I got a wow in the chat. It's pretty strong. Fun fact.
Dawn?
Um, Let me actually grab my fun fact.
Yes.
Not everybody knows this, but I am a huge fan of yarn. So this is what I do for fun in my free time.
I love it.
It's beautiful. Dawn shared with us earlier that she has crocheted little jackets for her dogs. Keep them warm.
Don't judge.
No,
Love
it's
that.
amazing. What's the coolest thing you've ever, is it knitted?
It's crochet, but I can
It's
knit
crochet.
too, just
Okay.
poorly.
Yeah.
Coolest thing. I really actually I enjoy doing baby blankets for people. So this one's I hope he doesn't see it, but this is actually a gift for one of my vendor partners. He just had a little girl, so that's going in his direction.
That's amazing.
Congrats, vendor partner. Reagan, you want to hit us with a fun fact or
All right, I got a couple of them for you.
oh good.
One is about me, and most people are starting to figure this one out. Like it's actually, I was just trying to search for the picture, but I actually did meet the former President Ronald Reagan when I was younger. I was about 11 years old. It was the day after I fell on the playground and chipped my big front tooth, and so I was quite embarrassed to meet my hero with a broken tooth. And I said to him, I said, "Hey, Mr. President, I was named after you." And he looked at me and put his finger in my face and said, "Well, you got a lot to live up to." So I've had that kind of hanging over me since I was, 11 years old. And I'll throw the picture in chat just for kicks and giggles. But that's kind of Reagan's fun fact. A general fun fact is that, and I do this for my friends, and I hope they're on this call that are come from the great state of Indiana, that an ear of corn has three times as many DNA strands than we do as humans. So that's 32,000 strands of DNA in one ear of corn, which doesn't make it smarter than us, and it doesn't really make it taste better, but it's just something that our Indiana friends can actually hold on to and feel proud about.
Awesome. I have
Those are
I
good facts.
living in Ohio, I ate a lot of corn, so I can appreciate that fun fact for sure. All right. Thank y'all for sharing. What do you say we start talking about projects?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's do it.
Great, great. All right. So we'll start with projects of the past, right? So let's just think about back in the day when y'all first started working at your MSP, when you founded your MSP, Lewis, when you started working with MSPs, what was that like? Lewis, do you want to talk about what MSP projects looked like when you first started working with them?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And y'all make sure to keep me honest and throw me under the bus. I've only been working with MSPs for a couple of years. I come from a manufacturing background, so some different kinds of projects there, but it's been interesting, right? I mean, we came into the MSP space from just traditional project management, if you want to call it that, construction space. And I think what we saw when we first came in were a number of different things. I'd say the biggest we saw was just work breakdown structures for folks and what their work plans looked like. And a lot of people on maybe two, maybe three tickets or tasks to run a project. And we saw a lot of it. We do still see a good amount of it, and there's definitely a balance of it. But we've seen, I think people appreciate and understand that, breaking the work down a little bit more, have a little bit more detail to work through it is beneficial for a number of reasons. But at the same time, right, I never want to be the guy that's like, you got to have more tickets because everybody hates more tickets, right? So there's always a balance of what that Goldilocks rule is. But I think for me, plenty of different things we've seen over the past couple of years, but that's probably the biggest.
Love it. Dawn or Reagan? How about you,
Ladies first on because she's also my role model.
twins?
So let's let's break that down a little further, right? I think from the MSP's point of view, projects look different for us from different organizational maturity levels. So when you're first starting out, a project is very simple, right? It can be literally a ticket and it might have some instructions in there and you do the needful and you close the ticket and you move on because it's a little project. And as things get larger, as your organization gets larger, as you have more people to do different parts of this moving process, the process also gets larger, more cumbersome, a lot more moving parts to it. And then you need some sort of tool or ticketing system, or at least a ticketing system that can do projects and do it well. And that's where you end up. But beyond that, I mean, like I said, it's all a matter of where you're at in your maturity level as an MSP, as far as that goes, and it's going to determine what they're going to look like. And Reagan, you can't steal my answer because I know you're thinking about it.
I would never steal anything from you, Don.
Only one part.
Yeah, I mean, for me, so my life before IT, if you will, is I started a medical real estate company back in the day, and my business partner and I we did build medical office buildings and surgery centers and hospitals and all the jazz, right? And for us, when we talk projects, it felt like a real project. And I don't mean to offend anybody in IT, but back then that's what it felt like. It was we're building something, and you had all these beautiful Excel spreadsheets that were managing your entire project, and you had multiple trades that were coming in, and you were trying to organize everything, and you were trying to, keep the client happy, knowing that it wasn't going to ever end up the way we planned at the very beginning, and there were going to be a million and one change orders, right? And then hopefully we all wouldn't kill each other then. And that was a project, right? And in my world. Fast forward to coming into IT and moving to the East Coast and looking at IT and getting thrown into these different projects or at different scales and what have you. A lot of times I was told by the experts, oh, it's not like what you're used to. It's not as complicated. You don't have to account for as many variables or what have you. And I tried to subscribe to that methodology and realized very quickly that was cap. That's not true. That it was just as much a complicated matter as what I was used to, and making sure that customers were a part of the process and that their change orders and all that type of jazz was just as real in IT as it was in construction. And then it was a matter of like how and what tools and who's involved and who's capable enough to manage something like this. Ended up and trying to figure out how the whole flow kind of would come together ended up being the obstacle, right? And for us in IT, none of us are so proud or confident, if you will, to think, okay, I've got it all figured out. I know the tool. I can do it all on my own. I believe, Don, correct me if I'm wrong, we're all humble enough to say, is there something out there that can do what I want it to do rather than reinvent the wheel? And that's where I've really enjoyed the tech side of things because I feel like generally we all look at it that way. In real estate, if I for a second flinched that I didn't know what I was talking about, or I didn't have an idea of what had to be done, it would immediately affect my reputation in the business. To where I love that in tech, we are all much more open to, hey, Don, what are you using? What are you doing? I've had this mistake, and kind of filtering it around. So that's kind of where we are these days.
Nice.
It's wild to me coming for like say, manufacturing. Like we all thought like, oh, we do it way better than everybody else, and we, contract manufacture for people, and they try to get manufacturers in the same room, like, so how are you doing it? And all of us would just sit there with our hands in our lap, like we would not share anything at all. And that's been a amazing thing to see coming into the MSP space. Is just like it's open, like we're all doing it. It's all over the place. We're all trying to help everybody succeed and grow the industry. And I think every industry could learn from that. Absolutely.
So do y'all feel like when you started out in the beginning, you spent a lot more time putting out the fires or a lot more time strategizing or a mixture of both?
Oh, you firefight for years. You do. It's just part of the maturity level of the organization. Unless you're really lucky or you've done a business before. I mean, if you're cheating and you've done a business before, like Reagan, you probably would have come into the situation saying, well, I know how to build a business. I know what this should look like from the beginning. So I have some of the basic tools. But for most of us that were on the technical side previously, we knew the tech, we didn't know the business, and we don't know the operations side of things. So that part you have to build over time.
You agree, Reagan?
No, 100%. I think being able to even realize that in tech, especially that, and what we do as MSPs is not as straightforward as most verticals, where they all kind of play on the same playground, right? They're playing the same toys, they're doing the same things. Don and I, we can have a phone call with the municipality in the morning and then talk with, a nonprofit in the afternoon and a for-profit law firm and all that type of stuff. And knowing that even the tools that we're recommending, as much as we want to put them all in the same place and as much as we want to do all the same things, vary, right? Which means that it's not always cookie cutter. And you have to get out of the lane, if you will, of saying, okay, well, we know this project's going to go from this to this, and it's going to look like this and this every single time. We know that we have to account for all the changes, which makes it fun for people who like chaos, and I like chaos, or else I wouldn't be doing this. I had to go just work for one company and just sit and do the same thing over and over. But that's definitely not my personality.
Yeah. Problem solving, right? I love to problem solve too. Something people probably don't know about me. Were
As
there
long as you're not a problem creator, Colleen, then we're okay.
maybe a little bit of both? No, just kidding. Were there any types of projects that y'all were managing a ton in the beginning? Maybe, I don't know, Microsoft 365,
Geez,
Microsoft.
when I came into it, it was, yeah, it was I came into IT, and we were just kind of trying to, a lot of people were like, oh, we want to manage as many servers as possible. We want to just make sure that we own and operate and it's all on-prem, blah, blah, blah. And that's how we're going to charge people. And it just was that kind of a thing. And I kept on thinking, no, I don't want to do that. There's got to be another way. And back then, I know full disclosure, Google was our baby. We loved that Google had created a hosted email platform and that we loved that we could put things in Drive and all that type of stuff. And so we were pushing hard for people to go that way. Microsoft did not have a product that was even close to Google back then. And so, yeah, initially I was very paranoid because I think that was my real estate part of me is that I've seen rooms become flooded out. I've seen rooms have fires. I've seen all these things. And so when I came in 19, I'm like, y'all put this in one room and whoa, you don't have any fire suppression. It freaked me out. So that was my big thing was I want to get Office servers as fast as I possibly can. I want to get everything into the cloud, do all these different things. Those were kind of definitely outside of obviously onboarding new clients and what have you. But if I had to say with the project where I was really kind of my baptism by fire, it was for sure moving people to the cloud and cloud hosted tools.
How about you, Dawn?
So completely different direction because that's the way chaos works with MSPs, right? Um, for me personally, I did a lot of continuity planning, which is a lot of project management. So it's the what happens when that room floods out, what happens when your building burns down. So it's not just backup and recovery. It's all about how to actually keep your business running and what does that look like. So huge projects around that would probably be where I started instead of the guys in my company did other things, but that's where my big project started to kick in. Other than that, it was we're going to do a mail migration and this is what this is going to, all of that standard stuff that everybody does. But I would say that's probably where that tipping point of really the need for actual project management started to kick in, because just too many people, too many moving parts, too much information to manage on a spreadsheet.
Great. Lewis, what were you seeing from MSPs you worked with?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting to hear too, right? Because we still see a lot of people that are moving to the cloud from physical servers. I think there's still a lot out there. And to your point, Don, like what are those projects that are just always going to happen, right? Like I feel like there's always going to be network upgrades. There's always going to be migrations as companies merge and acquire and whatnot. So we see a lot of those. And then I think, like this year tons of Windows 11's upgrades all over the place, right? So I think it's interesting just to watch, be able to, for us on the vendor side, be able to, work with a lot of customers and see all their projects. I'm like, oh, a lot of the people that are doing this and doing this and doing this, and who's kind of ahead and who's, still back there and moving stuff to the cloud. So it's interesting to look to hear y'all both say that and then look at that across multiple customers.
Cool. Well, hey, you started saying it yourself. Let's talk about what MSPs are doing now with their projects. What are some things you notice that you didn't used to do that you're doing now in MSP projects? Reagan?
All right. So I think, um, before, and it was definitely a sign of where we were to Don's point as far as maturity as an organization. I was doing everything, right? And I was running around trying to run projects, get new business and work with the techs. And then it was a graduation from that to, okay, my systems engineers can kind of do this, right? They can kind of do this on their own. They don't need me, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward to today, and now I've got project managers, right? And that's what they do. And it's their entire job is they sit and they take in all these projects. And that's been extremely helpful. Has it fixed all the problems? No. Where I thought I'm like, oh, okay, I've done this before. And again, in my other business, I'm like, yeah, project managers, that's what they do. And they ensure that I don't have any problems. They still have problems and things still get dropped and somehow things are missed. And I think what shocks me the most is that it still surprises me. And it still shocks me when something didn't go the way it was supposed to, or that something was missed. Again, I'll be the first one to say I'm far from perfect, far, far, far from perfect. So is the company. We learn a lot. But from every lesson learned, we always try to improve upon it and get it better. But I've learned that a little bit more of accountability has been key these days, right? And making sure that tasks are properly assigned and that when tasks are completed, they're verified. And Don, I think, has seen my tattoo. It says trust but verify. And that has been a thing, right? And the beauty of today, though, is that as much as I've had to be dependent upon humans, I can use technology a little bit more now to kind of do the verification process, because that's been hard to not only hold folks accountable, but to make sure that you do it in a way that doesn't disrupt their ability to continue to work and doesn't destroy their confidence, right? Because that's still a thing. People don't like being called out. People don't like feeling bad. And even with extreme ownership, which is a part of our day to day here at Solver One, you still have to be cognizant of that and then ultimately realize that it's your people that are number one and your clients come closely to number two. But yeah, I think we've gotten a lot better these days of being able to scope out projects, identify all the things. But now I think we're definitely stuck in that. How come we keep on missing the things here and there every so often?
One, I love that you mentioned extreme ownership, because I think that's always really important. And for us, it's awesome comes standard. And one of the things that we realized along the way is that, again, it's that evolution of maturity of the organization, and you get to a point where you realize that just because somebody can make a change and adjust something along the way doesn't mean that they should, or that they're communicating it properly, which is why you have some of the issues that you're having. And I'm not saying this is going to fix the issue, but having a really, really good change management process in place that has multiple eyeballs on it that has approvals, that has all of these things, right? So if you have an engineer that's looking at, one piece of that project and they're like, you know what, that's not going to work because of this, and whatever. So the change management process goes into place. They're, writing up exactly why there needs to be a change, what it's going to affect, what is this going to look like, where are the ripples going to hit. That goes up to, either our higher level people or our service manager for an approval. They approve it or reject it, depending on the situation, and they tell them to suck it up at that point if they're going to reject it. And then it gets documented. Everything's double checked. It's double checked with the client, and we get the communication going. So, like I said, that's one of those spots where it does start to make a really big difference if you have a good change management process in place. It doesn't fix everything, but it does stem some of the issues that you have with things, especially where communication is concerned.
That's a very good point. Very good point.
Dawn, do you mind elaborating a little bit on what you mean by change management?
Sure. For us, when we sat down and we're like, okay, so what exactly is change management? When does this happen? What does it look like? What are the exact qualifiers for change management, right? And we started saying, well, it could be this, it could be that, it could be all of these things, right? But the reality is that change management starts to hit when you're either doing something that's going to affect more than one user, more than one department, the entire organization, that kind of thing. That's when change management starts to kick in, right? You're just talking about one user, maybe even two, change management doesn't need to kick in. But when you're thinking about the number of people, users, machines, devices, people are going to notice if you make a change to it. That's when change management needs to kick in.
Thank you. Love it. Reagan, I see you just shared a file. Did you share that earlier?
No, I didn't, but I have to follow through with what I promised to do.
Oh,
Do that with do with that as you will. I do feel like, Colleen, I love your hat. I don't have the cow hat, but I'm going to do something to make myself feel less bald. Um, I love what Don said because that has been crucial. I think what's been interesting in projects lately, again, kind of going back to it's never like A to Z, and we completely can account for everything that pops up. Are these variables that change, and a lot of them these days are changes not of like, oh, I wish the design was this, or I wish the functionality was that. A lot of it's security, right? And we'll have a change where we'll say, hey, in order to make whatever this is, compatible or compliant to this standard, we need to do X, right? And sometimes clients will be like, yeah, I don't think we really need to, right? And then you have to get in that conversation. And then you talk about, all right, well, if you don't do this, then you have to accept the risk and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know that most MSPs accounted for those types of variables or even the thought that that would even be a thing during most projects. Being out here in the East and DC area and the greater Pennsylvania area, like Don is, CMMC is a thing, right? And being compliant to these standards and to a framework that is real and is law. So stop that hashtag CMMC death people is dead people who are on this call. Has created a lot of opportunities for us as MSPs. One, not only to provide services for others and our clients, but also to look inward and to do internal project management. Whoa, isn't that a thing, right? Like, MSPs only thinking that we could just do stuff for everybody else and it didn't apply to us. Like now we have to actually do these things internally and we have to actually run our organization just as well as we run others. And I think that's been kind of a really good thing for us too, as far as compliance is concerned, making sure that we actually are eating our own dog food because Dom loves dogs, and so I'm bringing up dogs, and that's been making that a thing, and that's been good, I think, for our industry in general, is to make sure that as we're approaching the recommendations that we're giving our clients, that we're actually doing them ourselves.
that's
And,
great.
and preferably we're doing it first for
Now,
ourselves.
Don, don't push it. Come on now.
Well, that's a great point, Reagan, because I was gonna ask you, Don. I was gonna say, the change management. People ask us the same thing, like, how do I know it's a project? How do I know it's change management? Like, just there's parameters that work for you, and set them. And if they make sense, great. If they don't, be willing to change them. For change management, for y'all, do you look at that the same way internally? I was gonna ask, like,
We
if
do.
you're, yeah,
We do actually, and it's interesting. We use a documentation system like most people do, right? So you have the ability to build out a process inside of there, and then change management is just one of the processes. So we copy it over for ourselves, for our clients, whatever that is, and you just run down the process.
Yeah, gotta be willing to drink your own Kool-Aid, right?
Exactly.
You do. I think what's been challenging for all of us is that, we've wanted to believe that there were tools out there that could do everything for us in the IT world, right? That we could clip on to some of the bigger CRMs or bigger managed tools, and they would say, "Hey, we can do it all for you. You have ticketing, you have project management, you have sale, and all that type of stuff." And it couldn't be further from reality, right? It's been more of okay, we have to actually find the specific tools that will operate the way we operate, right? And I think we as MSPs have had to be that way because there's no one size that fits all, and there's no one expert that can cover it all, right? And so it's been bittersweet because we all want the simple button, right? And we want to be able to say, okay, I can just jump into this ecosystem and it's going to do everything to help me run my business. But I think, and Don, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've realized that that's not the case, that we actually have to build a dream team our stack has to be a dream team stack, right? That we need to use this tool that's going to be best for this process and not accept mediocrity. And I think for a while, and I'll admit for us, as we were trying to utilize tools that were just in one ecosystem, we were willing to accept suck. We're willing to say, hey, well, we want to keep it here because it's here, and even though it's not the tool we need, we're going to keep on using it because it's here. And we've graduated to no, we are going to use the very best tool because it's the right thing to do. It's the best thing for not only us as a company, but it's the best thing for our partners. And so I think that's been a really good place that we found, for us that's working. And that's definitely a recommendation I would continue to give MSPs is that, you continue to look and do due diligence on the products that are going to be best for you and your clients. And the cheat code is that you're not going to find it in one place. So.
I like that a lot, actually. Stop embracing the suck. And I mean, the other part is like you do have to hold the vendors accountable because you are paying for things. And if they told you it was going to work and it doesn't, hold them accountable. And
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah,
times we don't.
keep us honest,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. No, and that's a whole nother topic we could talk
That is a
about for a
whole,
long. But I was gonna ask Reagan. You made a comment. You said we need to find the tools that work the way we work, right? Um, how do you approach a situation when you're looking at a tool? And I'll try to loop this back into projects. So keep me honest, Colleen. But that you're like, well, maybe we're not doing it the best way, right? Or like maybe there's a different. I haven't thought about doing it that way. How do you how do you approach that thought process or attack that with your team?
I love that. I love that you even bring that up because it kind of goes back to what we said before. I believe generally that we're a very humble,
Yeah.
a humble group, right, in the MSP world. And I know for 100% surety that I don't know it all and I don't know the best process. I generally know what needs to happen in order to make a thing work, but I'm completely open. Our teams are completely open to, okay, but if this tool suggests another way, let's try it. Right? Like I'm always open to that. I will try and try and try. I'm like the Velociraptor in Jurassic Park. I will work until I find the weakness, and then I'm going to get through that dang thing, right? But so I think that's a huge thing for us is that we are willing to try and listen and take suggestions because if you're in technology and you're so arrogant that you think you got it all figured out, you'll be pushed out real fast, or something bad's going to happen to you. It is what it is. But no, we will definitely our teams are definitely open to suggestions of different ways to do it. I think where I'm kind of coming from is that some tools will skip what I believe to be very critical components and say, no, no, you don't need to do that. Does that make sense? Like they'll
Yeah.
say,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you don't have to, double check this or you don't have to run that or blah, blah, blah. And then that's where I may take issue. If you tell me I've got to do extra something, I'm going to be okay with that. Okay. Well, in order to ensure that it's successful, I need to add a couple more elements to it or variables or checks. I'm all that. If you tell me that, oh, no, no, you don't have to do some of the things that I really do know that has to be done, then I'm gonna probably push back. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are reminding me with when obviously y'all are very involved in the communities, when you talk to other MSP owners or people who are very involved in projects and are having conversations about projects or how you manage projects, are there any telltale signs where you'd say, oh, this person seems like they have it figured out because they're doing XYZ or because they've thought about XYZ when other people aren't?
The moment people start talking about all the things that didn't work, and if they're willing to tell you how they have crashed and burned on repeat, and then how they made their way through, they've figured it out. That's the telltale sign. Like anybody that's willing to say, here's what you don't want to do because we've done this. um, and I know Reagan and I have had this conversation on multiple facets. We've all had this conversation in multiple facets. Like, especially when somebody's going down the road of, oh, we want to look at XYZ, and they're like, oh, do you now? And go through here are some things you should take a look at. If you're doing things XYZ way, here's where that may fall through for you, that kind of thing, because we've tried this particular thing in that particular way. If you're doing it in a different way, it may work for you. So I think it's bouncing those ideas off people, but it's typically the people that are willing to tell you what worked, what didn't, and all the places that they have failed along the way. One, because it's humorous for everybody involved, and we all have a really good sense of humor about it. But two, you tend to learn more both from your failures, but also from somebody else's that are willing to share them and do it in a really good, constructive way.
So I can sum up what Don said in like just a phrase that even Don taught me. We try not to yuck on their yum, right? Like they'll come in saying they got something all figured out and all what have you. And Don did this to me. She said it to me over and over again. And whatever, like, but no, Don, you can't do it that way. No, Don, that's not the right way. He would say, Reagan, stop yucking on my yum, right? Like you do have to be cognizant and aware and let people kind of go through their process. And but you want to be helpful. And I can agree with Don more. It's you typically can tell people who have I don't know that I can say anyone has it figured out, right? But I think there are people that have a better idea or have maybe gone through a few things that can, help us glean some better knowledge. But when they're a little bit more forthcoming, it works out really well. I think that's what I love about our degenerate community, other than the fact that we're really dang fun. And, people dress up in costumes, and my wife teases me about cosplay. I still don't even think I understand what she means by that. But we sit and commiserate, we sit and celebrate, we sit and we talk it all through, we discord it up, we do whatever respectfully for the most part. Occasionally, when some folks or vendors make decisions that we definitely don't agree with, some fires get lit, some pitchforks come out, but nobody dies, and we keep on going forward.
Not that anything like that happened this week. No.
No, nothing at all.
It's
Nothing at all.
healthy. It's healthy. Has to happen. That's a true ecosystem. Do you think it could vary based on an ideal buyer? So for example, Reagan, you have your ideal buyer, you have the companies that you work with, right? And then Dawn, you have the companies you work with. Do you think certain things Dawn's doing that didn't work out so well might work well with Reagan's clients just because you have different ideal buyers? Would you say or no?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's the end consumer. I would say it's the way that the MSP functions, right? Because Reagan and I do things differently. Every MSP, while we have access to the exact same tools, we have different people, and different people do things different ways. So, I guess at the end of the day, every MSP is the same. It's the people that make it very different and make the workflows different and how you do things different. It's not necessarily the tool stack.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that's clients can vary, their needs can vary. There are some rules that will always be rules, right? As far as kind of minimum standards, if you will. I think where Don's been able to help me out has been some of the different type of situations I'll be in where I didn't think about a thing, right? Like if I didn't consider a different approach or even a way to communicate it to my client about why we're doing something. I think that's where we've really been able to benefit from our relationships in the community is trying to communicate better with our partners why they need to do something, if that makes sense. Because whatever the tool ends up being, it's going to be right for them. And we want to minimize tools, don't get me wrong. But I think we still struggle a lot with communicating effectively to the decision makers the exact reason why, right? Because our why in technology, I'm telling you, it keeps on being different than theirs, right? If you're talking to boardrooms, or the C-suites, and they care about risk and profitability, right? And that's all they care about. And it doesn't matter if I can show them all the wrongs and all the things that are going to implode. I just have to scare them with, so it's going to cost you $20 million if you get found out. Like I saw that too. It's like, or I can actually, this tool will help you. Of course, they love it so much more when you say, if we use this tool with you, you are going to make more money, right? They love that. That's an easy conversation. What we as MSPs get caught into is every time we communicate with them, saying we're going to have a new approach, a new tool, a new system, a new policy, or what have you, all they hear is cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. How much is this going to cost me? And so we really try to learn and work with each other as a community to say, okay, what's the best pitch, if you will? How do we best demonstrate our value? Because now that these tools, thankfully, are so good at helping us do what we do, that our clients don't hear as much noise. And sadly, the rational mind thinks that should be good. Unfortunately, the reality is that our clients then start thinking, well, I don't hear from Don's team that much anymore.
Mm.
Why do I need them? Why am I paying him X amount of dollars? Like so then we have to get into this whole, every time we're meeting with them, we're demonstrating, okay, without boring them to death. They don't want to see a gajillion reports on why. So they want to see, oh, hey, we had this project. We got it done within 2 weeks instead of 4. It was able to save you X amount of money instead of costing you Y, right? You know what I mean? It's a whole different philosophy, which has made us better, but that's just how we have to be successful these days.
Well, and it's interesting too, the shift in market, the shift in communication, the shift in messaging that has had to happen. I literally was on the phone with our controller last night. She's actually at a client site, and the conversation that she's having with them is, based on the work that we're doing, what this is actually looking like, it's actually going to raise what your company's worth, probably by a 4 multiplier.
Wow.
So maybe we should do XYZ, So I think it is, to Reagan's point, 100%. It's all about how you're delivering the value that you're bringing the client and the message that goes along with it, and who actually needs to hear it in what way. So figuring that out is paramount. And unfortunately, within projects, it's hard to figure out because you never know exactly who you're talking to and who's going to be at the project meeting, quite frankly.
Well, but if we think about and the topic, right, of projects then, now, and future, that what you just hit on there, Don, that's every project, no matter what, no matter how you're managing it, forever, right? I mean,
Right.
it's over communicating. Who are the stakeholders, internal, external? To your point, Reagan, what do they want to see? What do they not want to see? What's the right amount of information? Like that, I don't think that will ever change. How you gather it and put it together and present it, yeah, sure, it'll get easier and all that, but that's going to be something that happens on projects until the end of time.
Would y'all say that you've seen your customer expectations change from back in the day versus now?
No, they don't care about anything. It's totally fine. Yeah, oh my gosh.
Was that lightning in the background, Don? I think it's just
Yeah, I think it might have. Yeah. I, I, I'm sure Reagan has seen the same things, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like from that 2020 time period, there has been a tremendous shift in expectations. There's a tremendous shift in, I would say, accountability. I think there's a big shift in risk. I think there's a big shift in a lot of things. So the expectations have shifted harder towards the MSP, I think, in what the client is expecting as far as that goes. And the accountability has not shifted to the client the way that it should. So I think there's a give and take there that needs to happen that hasn't happened yet. And I'm hoping people will come back around to when the MSP is telling you, hey, you have to do XYZ, Mr. or Mrs. Client. This is what you want fixed. We need to be able to do XYZ. And they're like, okay, yes, I understand that. Let's move forward and do that. We're not necessarily getting that. It's I just expected you would do that. And I don't need to do anything to facilitate that. And that's not necessarily where we're at in life. Mm.
You're 100% right. I think that was a huge shift from 2020. I think where our clients, depended upon us to make sure they had business continuity and they could work, and they were kind of like, okay, just tell us what you want us to do because we have to stay in business. To today, where they're seeing that their technology spend has gone up and up and up and up and up and up, right? Like, and now it's becoming a bigger thing for them every time they budget. And that wasn't the case before, whether technology was somehow kind of mixed with other things or not. Now they're actually looking at it and saying, okay, what are we paying for? What is it doing for us? And Don like hit the nail on the head. We've had to get really good with our accountability and responsibility matrix with each one of our partners of here's where Silver One is hitting, and this is where you have to be, and there has to be crossover. We have to be communicating. We have to be doing steering committee meetings. And yes, I'm going to be the one 45 minutes in that talks about AI. Like AI is a thing, right? And where we are coming to the table and saying, what does that really mean? What's the difference between AI and machine learning, and how does that kind of work with your environment? And how does it help us with our tools? How does it help us with our products, our projects? Like how does this all kind of play in? Fortunately, I think for the most part, they still consider us the experts when it comes to technology. They may not agree with all of our recommendations, and they may not agree to spend all the money we need them. And I say need, not want. Every time we propose something, and I know this is at least true for Don and me, it's not because we're like, hey, this is just something that'll be fun to kind of play around with in your environment. Well, they need it, right? But they always think that we're trying to get them something we want. Once we can kind of get them to shift, understand that these needs actually provide value and provide continuity and all that type of jazz, or will ensure successful projects, and they get on board with that, then we're in a better position. And that's where we feel the partnership. I have some partners where it's just lockstep, like here's the recommendation, here's the why, here's the benefit. Okay, Reagan, let's go. And then I have partners where I'm like, here's the reason, here's the why, blah, blah, blah. No, that doesn't make sense to me. It could be the exact same thing. I'm like, why don't we get it? Like, and I think that'll always be a thing. And I don't know that AI is going to fix that, right? Like, I think it still is going to
Mm.
take a human. It's still going to take a Don, and it's still going to take, a me and everybody else that are still trying to explain why you are spending this and what's the benefit. But then we just have to keep on demonstrating it. The reason we use this tool is to accomplish this. You agreed to use it, so here's what we accomplished. Whoa, you did a good thing, right? And be willing to accept that every once in a while we'll be wrong. You know what I mean? And we may have thought this tool was going to be the solution for this partner, and we've learned as we've implemented it or changed or what have you that it ended up not being exactly what we want it to be, and to say mea culpa and change and move on.
The one thing that I wish that more people understood about MSPs, I know in my organization, I'm pretty sure in Reagan's too, our account managers, our CIOs, that kind of thing, they are not incentivized to sell, which is crazy, but they're not. They actually have wording in their job role that says you're the client's advocate and you're not there to just sell the product. Because if they're not there to advocate for the client and do the right thing, then they are just selling them stuff. And then it's not in the best interest of the client. So it is true what Reagan said on if we're recommending something, there's a reason behind it because our people are not incentivized to actually just go sell stuff.
Yep, you're absolutely right, Don.
Question for both of you. So you both touched on it, right? How do you handle a situation when a customer comes to you and you're like, yeah, this is a project, we're going to charge for this, and they're like, no, isn't this included in our agreement? Like, how often does that happen, and how do you have to handle
Every
those?
Every
project
time.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to, yeah,
It
yeah.
never
So
happens. What are you talking about? They're like, oh, Reagan, yeah, you want to do a new thing? Yeah, let's pay you. We should pay you for it, right? Like I would knock over like dead right on spot if someone said, yo, you're gonna do a project, I need to make sure I pay you. I would just drop dead. It would just be
It does happen from time to time, but to Reagan's point, 100%, I think that a lot of times people just assume because they don't go back and read their contract, they don't go back and look at the legalese of all of it, that everything's just covered because we're their technology partner. We just handle that. If it plugs into the wall, that's us, right? But there are things that are outside of that contract, and unfortunately, that's just the nature of things. If we did everything for free, if you would, we would go out of business too. So.
Very
yeah, I think that is another challenge that we have as MSPs. There's a fact that cannot be disputed. We are not an internal IT department. We're not, right? We exist because we believe that we can fractionalize a thing, IT, which is pretty big, right? For giving you more access to the breadth of all the experts that we have on our team that would cost you hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to develop in-house, right? And we believe that that's a better model than you doing it in-house. But their expectation, if they come from a traditional internal IT team, is that we operate, respond, do exactly how they did. I still argue we still do more, even than they did because they'll kind of just sit there to exist. But anyway, no offense. But I think that's still where, we're educating our partners to your point, Lewis, is to understand that, hey, in our contract, we exist to maintain and monitor your existing environment. Anything that comes out or goes outside of that is a project, right? And being
Yeah.
able to kind of go through that. I think where we've been able to be successful on our side of the fence with our partners is that we will never, ever, ever charge a client for a project or something that's outside of our scope or our partnership or statement of work unless they've approved it first. So there's no surprise like, wait, we were talking about something and you charged me 20 hours for it? I had no idea. Like that's what I think from our side of the fence, we have to always be very transparent with and very clear with. I'm sure Don is similar to me. We lose scoping hours every so often talking about things that you could definitely argue as part of a project, but we're just doing it because it's the right thing to do. And we're just doing it because we care about our partnerships. That's the difference of those of us, again, I'm not here to offend people that are still private owners, right? They're still privately owned our MSPs. We are the minority these days, just to be frank, right? The majority of MSPs right now that have tons and tons of end of users are being bankrolled by investment or printer companies that know that printers suck, like and all that type of stuff. So that what makes us still unique is that we're willing to consider a customized partnership and being able to have those conversations with our partners and the ebbs and flows and all that type of stuff.
Do you ever
Does that
feel
happen? Sorry. Do people just do projects for customers and charge them for them and not tell them and get approval? What?
You know,
all the time.
it's in there. It'll be in their contract. I've seen some of the craziest contracts.
What?
Yeah, from organizations that'll basically stipulate that they're almost like a law firm or an accounting firm. And the second that you say, "Hey, I'm considering something new or something different," that the clock starts and they just start it and they flip them a bill. And
That's wild.
yeah, and so, that's not, again, this is why like-minded people will hang out with like-minded people. That's not how we are. That's not how we roll. And that's not, if we were the internal IT department, which is what we're really trying to kind of like put out there, like, hey, it's as if we are, we wouldn't treat each other that way. But yeah,
Wow.
that's what a lot of people do. A lot of companies, I should say. I don't know if
Wow.
I believe that's another debate, whether companies are people, people are companies. I don't know.
Reagan, how often would you say that like, all right, we just lost out on a lot of margins because of this situation, but we're by our honor code, we're not going to charge our customer for all this extra work.
You know exactly where you're leading me, and you know what? It does happen.
How
Holy cow!
often do you have to revise your process or your project process and say, okay, well, maybe next time we need to do this because we do not want to lose out on those margins anymore the way we just did?
No, no, it happens more often than I'd like, right? Like to Don's point, it's tough when you don't incentivize your team to sell certain things. I mean, project managers are a little bit different. Like they have to do their job, and if they do it really well, then of course, they get bonuses because they're project managers, right? But yeah, it happens to where for example, we were doing a huge network refresh. We scoped out the project, knew exactly. We had an idea of what it was going to do with firewalls and WAPs and the whole thing. We get there and we're given hardware that has problems, bugs, issues, this, that, what have you. We're having to return devices. We're having everyone troubleshoot. We're getting on with the vendor. And I didn't account for those hours. And there were a lot of hours, right? Like, and I realized, and so my project manager's like, well, am I charging the client for the fact that we had all these problems with the actual product? Well, Reagan, are you going to go to that vendor and say, hey, vendor, you're going to pay me that much? Yeah, right. They'd laugh. They would laugh at all the money. And so we have to account for that. But to your point, unless I have or we have sent through change management, we've done a change order, and they've approved it to extend the project, we will eat those hours because that's the right thing to do. it makes it more, I have to be better. So I've had to reshape that, right? And account for in the event that something happens with hardware and all that type of stuff that could prolong the project. I'm going to try to seek relief from the manufacturer, but that's not really our responsibility. The irony is in our statement, in our contracts, our statement of work, we say that we have no zero responsibility for the defects of hardware, right? But I didn't think, Reagan, I needed to put that in my project. That again, if we have to spend time where we're troubleshooting for things that are not exactly ours, that we have to account for that. I still think we'd get pushback, and I'd be curious to hear what Dawn, because again, Dawn is a much smarter person than I am, and I'm sure she learned that a long time ago than I did. But I could totally see from our client's point of view, well, why would I pay you for that? You know what I mean? So those are the things that we always have to be thinking about. But the horribly long answer to your question, Colleen, is that and the reason why we all stay in business and I have the partnerships I have is because I'm always going to do the right thing. And if they don't see that it was that I made it clear enough that they were responsible for a thing, then I'm going to eat it.
So I'm gonna twist that just a little bit from the standpoint of other third party vendors, right? That we have with our clients. You're talking about hardware. I'm talking about maybe it's a software vendor, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And they say, hey, it's not my problem. Obviously, it's your network. And you chase a ghost issue for 6, 8, 10 hours, maybe 2 weeks. It's amazing to be able to do that. And you can't find anything that's wrong. They can't tell you exactly what's causing the issue in their thing that they're blaming your network for. So we finally had to include language into our contracts at that point that basically says if your vendor can't tell us where the issue is, we can't go hunting for it. Because if we're telling them it's not there, we don't see anything in our logs, we can't produce anything that says we have a problem, they can't produce any evidence that there's a problem other than they want to point a finger. We can't do that because we ate a lot of time in that. And that's just, that doesn't do the client any good. It doesn't do us any good. And the vendor whose problem it actually is, they never fix the problem. So everyone is at a loss at that point. So again, that's the no longer embracing the suck and making people accountable scenario.
Where do we see this going in the future, everyone? I guess a more concise way of saying it is, do you see your projects becoming much more standardized in the future, or do you imagine you'll decide to really start customizing your projects? If that question makes any sense.
I'll defer to Dawn.
I mean, I imagine a lot more of the same. I imagine that there's going to be some automation built into it. I imagine that AI is going to give it a little lift here and there, just from the standpoint of we have the technology, we can build it better at this point, so there's no reason not to. But other than that, people are still going to be people, whether it's today, tomorrow, 10 years in the future. Humans are still humans, so you're still going to have that issue. It's just more a matter of how do we go about closing loops in different places so that things don't get missed? And I think the ability to have automation where we have our process laid out exactly the way that we want it, that's great. We have AI to kind of take a look at it and make sure that we haven't missed anything or we haven't, missed a question that we should have asked, that kind of thing. I think that part of it will get better, but again, people.
Totally. Lewis, what do you think based on the MSPs you're working with?
Yeah, I think Dawn's spot on, and it goes to Reagan's earlier point is the verification piece, I think is going to get it a lot easier for people. Like, hey, did this actually get done? Can we move on to this next step in the project? I think you asked about process, right, and standardization. I think a lot of people are understanding that projects need to have a little bit more process around them in the MSP space. But what I would advise, and again, you've heard me say this before if you've been on here, I live in a fantasy world. Like, y'all do the real work. Like, I just get to not do projects, just talk about them. But you've got to give yourself the flexibility, right? To Dawn's point, there's going to be people, customers are going to have different expectations, but just knowing, like, yeah, sure, we put in the contract that the customer's liable. We can't be for the hardware and the bugs, but we know it's the right thing. So yeah, we always want to standardize and get more process, but just, I would say out the other side of my mouth, you need to give yourself the flexibility, right, to do what's right.
Awesome.
I want to live in fantasy world. Can't that be a thing for everybody?
It's pretty fun. Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you all. I think where some tools that can kind of play into our world aren't necessarily, replacing people, but augmenting what they do, right? I think to Don's point, I'm looking for our tools to eliminate the human error, not the human. You know what I mean? Like I want the trust but verify to occur through the software, and that the human is then just doing the thing. And the more we can get towards that, I think is going to be better for everybody because then the amount of errors, the amount of issues, the amount of contention, frankly, between you and your
Yeah.
client starts minimizing drastically, and now you're just celebrating the wins. Because I think generally, anytime we've had good conversations with our partners and successful projects, is because the communication has been top notch, a paramount all along the way. I don't want to give off the vibe that every project sucks and people are always unhappy because that's not the case, right? There are some diamonds in the rough and there are things that definitely go well. And when you get done with it, you feel really good about it. And there's some where you have to do the after action and kind of move on with it. But I think tools are going to help us get through that.
I mean, to your point, Reagan, I mean, even when balls are dropped along the way, it doesn't make it a bad project. It makes it a way to, come back around, fix it. There's always a learning process to it. And I think you're right in that respect. Like, not every project is a bad one. Even ones that have issues aren't bad projects. They still got done in the end.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, I know we're right at time. I
We
just
did it.
We filled an hour.
thank you, Dawn, Lewis, and Reagan, for coming on here today, joining us and sharing your expertise. I got to plug the Tech Degenerates. Just please visit thetechdegenerates.com. Their website looks nice. I saw y'all made some updates. I really like it. Join the Discord. It's free. There's so many nice people in there. Just I'm farting around there all the time, every day. So if you want to have a friend, I'll be your friend on there. And also, there's going to be a survey afterwards. If you have any other thoughts about this webinar, any questions, we can connect you with Dawn, Reagan, or Lewis. And if you ever have any other webinar topics that you want to see come up in the future, there's also a place for you to suggest those. We've had some really good ideas in the past from people. So, anywho, thank you all.
Thank you.
A
Appreciate it.
wonderful Friday, and I'll see you around.
Moo.
Thank you.